Hello, my amazing developers. So in the previous video, we completed record view and all of its embedded views. Then we also looked at how to set up timer to get updates every second. And we use this code to plug it to timer view to show our recording time. In today's video, we will improve UI elements and we will see how we can choose a video capture device. We will cover some background information as well as some code part related to it. So let's get started. So in the first part of the video, we will improve UI elements, and this part of the video will be divided into further segments. So I have Xcode open up over here from the previous video. So when we run our application, we notice there are some things that we can improve on the UI part. So first we will change the view's background color to black. So let's do that. I'm going to stop the application, hide the bottom console area, and in the capture view controller nib file, I'll expand the views, select the video preview view, and bring in the right bar in the properties, set the background color to black color. Let's check whether this runs fine or not. This is what we want for the view's background color to be updated to black. Next, we will update the status bar color to make it light content. So let's go ahead and see how we can do that. I'm going to stop the application and hide the bottom console area, hide the right bar, go into the capture view controller file, Swift file, sorry. I'm going to override a property over here, preferred status bar style, and I'm going to return light content. So let's run the application. We notice the status bar style has been updated to light content, but if it does not reflect the changes, we need to also set a property in the info.plist. So let's do that by opening up the info.plist file, making some space over here, and adding a new property, scrolling all the way to the bottom and select view controller based status bar appearance. Select this property and update its value to yes. This will confirm that this will rather allow the view controllers to set individually the status bar style. Some view controllers can say I want dark content, and some can say I want light content. So as you guys saw in the capture view controller, we have a fully black view, so we need the status bar to appear as light content. So let's run our application, and we notice the status bar is light. Let's stop the application now and hide the bottom console area. Next, when we run our application, we notice the timer view is already running, and we need to update the timer view with some of the improvements. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to stop the application and hide the bottom console area. Let's head to the capture view controller Swift file, and from the view did load, remove the setup timer. We don't need it. Let's run our application again. We notice the timer has stopped now. Let's stop the application, hide the bottom console area. We also need to remove the white background color from the timer view by going to the capture view controller Swift file, expanding the views and selecting the timer view, expanding the right bar, and in the background color we will select as clear color. Then also we will update the timer views nib file here, and the main content view, we will select that and specify the background color to clear color. Save the file. Let's run our application now, and we notice the background white color is gone now. It's now clear color. Now we notice the timer view has sharp edges So let's go ahead and fix that. Let's apply some kind of rounded edges onto the timer view. I'm going to stop the application. While I'm in the timer view nib file, I'm going to select the visual effect view, and I'm going to go to its properties and specify layer.corner radius, and select type of number and specify a value of 4. Now let's also, while the visual effect view is selected, select the property of clip to bounds. Let's run our application and we confirm that we get the rounded edges. Next, we will hide the timer view and only display it when the recording has started. So let's go ahead and do that by stopping the application and heading to the capture view controller nib file, expanding the views, selecting the timer view, and specify its property to is hidden. Let's run the application again, and we notice the timer view is hidden now. Next, we will update the record view. We will make it clear color as the background rather than white, and we will also update its color around the stroke and the ring view from red to white, and we will keep the red color only for the stop view. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to stop the application. While I'm in the capture view controller, I'm going to select the record view, and I'm going to select the background color from the system background color to clear color. Then I'm going to head to the record view Swift file where we set up the stroke, and I'm going to say border color is system red. I will change it from system red to white. And also, while I'm here, I'll specify the border width from 7 to 4 because we saw the thickness is too much on the stroke. While we have reduced the stroke border width from 7 to 4, we need to increase the ring view size also. So let's go ahead and do that now by going to the nib file, expanding the view, expanding the container view, selecting the ring view, and update its constraints of the width and height from 62. We will increase it to 68. Same thing goes with the width. And while I'm here, I'll also update the corner radius value. The half of 68 is 34. Let's save the application. Let's run our application to confirm the changes. Perfect, that's what we want. We want the stroke to appear white and the ring view to appear red. And when I tap on the view, the animation is the same as we did last time. And the stop button is also red. And while pressing the stop button now, we get back our ring view. That's what we need. Next, we will look at orientation changes. By that, I mean when we rotate our device, we notice the record view has a jump animation. So from the bottom edge, it jumps and animates to the right side. So let's see what I mean by that. I'm going to enable select the device while selecting the simulator, and I'm going to apply the animation as I will select debug and select slow animation. And when I rotate the device, you will see the jump animation. It's a funny animation. It maintains a smooth curve, but this is not what we want. While the person will be rotating the application, this will have a distracting effect that the view will be jumping around. So we will stop that. What we want to do is hide it from its place and appear it in the right place. So we need some extra functions for that. Let's see what we can do about that. Rotating the device again gives us this animation. See, even from the landscape left and landscape right orientation changes, it brings it all the way from the other side as if it's circle or rotation is going on. We don't want this effect. So let's go ahead and update the orientation changes code. I will be stopping the application, and heading to the capture view controller file, hiding the right bar and the bottom console area. Here in the capture view controller.swift file, we need to have two methods, one to hide the record view and one to show the record view. So let's have a method. I'm in the private extension of the capture view controller, as I don't want, my best practice is always not to expose the methods and rather keep everything private and only expose the functions or methods and properties that is really required by other classes. That's why I always have a best practice of keeping everything private in a private extension. Everything is grouped together. So I'm going to write a function, hide record view, and here I'm going to simply say record view.alpha is set to 0, and I need to show the record view. For that, I will be having a function name or method name show record view, and so the hiding part is directly setting the alpha part to 0, but for the showing part it needs to be animated in. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to have an animation property of type UIView property animator, and selecting this method, so where I can specify the time interval of 0.3, curve method is in and out, and the animation is self.recordView.alpha set to 1, and I need to start the animation here by saying start animation. Then in the view will transition method, as we scroll up in this specific function, rather than having the setup orientation constraints, we need to update the code to show and hide the record view. We will be hiding the record view when the transition starts changing from the size orientation changes, and when the animation of the transition orientation changes is completed, we will be animating in the record view. So we don't get this ugly effect of jumping around record view. We simply want to hide the record view from its place directly, and when the animation for the size changes finishes, we need to bring in the record view as an animation. So while I'm here in the view will transition, first I need to call the hide record view method, and also in the same method view will transition, iOS is giving us an opportunity to provide our animation and getting to know about the completion event is finished by looking at the coordinator. So we will be asking the coordinator that we need to animate alongside, and in the context here, this property is passed as a context. We will not be doing anything because we don't want to animate alongside the animation changes. Rather, we are interested in the completion block. So I'm going to call the completion block. Here it's going to give us again a property of context. Here I'm going to ask my record view to appear again as animation. But before I do that, I need to always have weak self because we are in a block. Not to have memory leaks, we need to make sure always we get weak as self. So I'm going to write the code guard let self equals self, else return, and I'm going to say self show record view. Show record view, and in the animation alongside we don't need anything. In the hide record view we need to start with that, and also we're going to take this code, set up orientation constraints, and bring it down in the completion block. But first we need to set up the orientation constraints and then ask the record view to appear. Let's remove this top space as well, bottom space. So now when we run our application, we are going to test this piece of code that we have written. And again, make sure while the simulator is selected, we can have the slow animations. But first, let's try out with the normal effect what we mean. That's exactly what we desire. We want the record view to disappear and appear from its right place. See, that's what I mean. Again, the same effect. And if you want the slow animation, you can also select the simulator again and go to the debug menu and select slow animations. Again, when we rotate the device, That's what we need. I'm going to turn off the slow animation part and bring to its right place and stop the application. Now we need to choose video capture device, but first we need to have some background information to understand how the different iPhones and iPad devices have different kinds of camera setup in the back side, the rear camera. Under the documentation of choosing a capture device from Apple's developer website, we notice Apple tells us that we can quickly choose a default device. That means if we already know what kind of capture device that we are looking for the video, we can directly write the code. Apple is saying if you know exactly what kind of capture device you're looking for, you can choose the convenience one of the methods and select the default device. For example, the below code selects the best available back-facing camera, either on the dual camera on supported devices or the single wide angle on the single camera devices. This piece of code will select the best available camera based on the available choices. But this does not solve our problem. We need to support multiple range of devices by providing options for multiple iPhone devices as well as iPad devices, where in latest iPhones we have 3 camera setup. Then we have some older models supporting 2 camera in the back, and then we have some really old devices where we have 1 camera. Same thing goes with the iPad Pro, where we have 2 lenses, 2 cameras, sorry, and in the end we have only 1 camera as well in the iPad. So before we jump into the code, we need to understand what kind of Apple devices support what kind of camera setup. So let's go ahead and see how we can do that. So I have Wikipedia article of list of iOS devices, and this gives much detailed information about each and every iOS device since the time of release and what kind of information it supports and provides. So when we scroll down, we are interested in the iPhones. So currently supported in production and supported iPhones, we have the iPhone XR, we have the iPhone 11, 11 Pro, 11 Pro Max, and the latest iPhone SE supported as of this year. So let's go ahead and check the iPhone XR and XR. We are interested in the rear camera of the iPhone XR, and its camera is supported as 12 megapixel wide. That means that it supports only 1 camera. So I have the iPhone XR technical specs page open up over here, and as confirming from the photo, we can see it has only 1 camera, and when we scroll down, we can also see it's Apple is saying it's 12 megapixel wide camera. Next, let's check the other iOS devices. So when we scroll up for the iPhone 11, we notice it supports in the rear camera side, it supports 2 cameras, one of the wide and one of the ultra wide. So by heading to the iPhone 11 technical page website, we can confirm Apple's website, we can confirm the iPhone 11 has 2 cameras, and this is the information that is matching with the Wikipedia article as well. Then similarly for the other iOS devices on the iPhone 11 Pro and 11 Pro Max, the bigger variation of the phone, we notice it supports triple camera setup, one of wide, one ultra wide, and one of telephoto. And finally, here on the iPhone 11 Pro website also, in the Apple's website technical page, it mentions the same thing. We can see it's triple setup, camera and triple camera, one wide, ultra wide, and one telephoto. Finally, we can also check the iPhone SE, the latest supported iPhones, and for the camera, it supports only 1 type, that is the wide angle. And in the technical page also, for the iPhone SE, I can see we have only 1 camera available, that is the 12 megapixel wide. I'll be posting these links of the websites and the pages in my description, so you guys can also confirm that. Now back in the Wikipedia article, when we continue scroll, we noticed the discontinued but still supported iOS devices, iPhone devices. We need to see from iPhone 6s all the way up to iPhone 10s Max, what kind of camera setup do we have. So we notice we have the single camera, and then we have the dual camera with wide angle and the telephoto. Then we have the wide over here, and we have the wide and telephoto. So this is an option that we need to support from different cameras. Scrolling further down to the iPad devices, discontinued iOS devices. We are looking for iPad devices. We need to scroll further down until we reach iPad. We notice the iPad supports, these are the different iPads, and the rear camera is also of, all of these iPads support only one camera, which is the 8 megapixel wide. Scrolling further down, we notice again the iPad mini on the supported model from the Apple. We have the rear camera of one type only, 8 megapixel wide. And scrolling further down until we reach the iPad Air, we can see the rear camera is also one, but I'm interested with iPad Pro as well. iPad Pro, on all the supported devices of the iPad Pro ranges, we can confirm the camera ranges from 1, that is the wide angle, to higher megapixel count camera, and then having a dual setup, that is the wide and ultra wide angle. Alright, we have enough knowledge to grab video capture device. We will write the code in following order. First, we will try to get a triple camera setup that supports wide, ultra wide, and a telephoto. And this will cover the latest iPhones. And if we fail to do so, we will try to grab wide angle and ultra wide angle that supports the iPad Pro, latest iPad Pro devices. If this also fails, we will move on to the next one that supports dual camera setup also, but this time with wide angle and telephoto. So we can support broad ranges of iPhone devices. And finally, if none of the above has been successful, we will try to grab only the wide angle camera that is for the single camera iOS devices. Under the documentation of AVCaptureDevice device type, when we scroll a bit down, we need to understand what kind of capture devices are we looking for. So this is the first point that we will try to check whether we have the triple camera. So here Apple tells us that this device consists of 3 cameras of fixed focal length, 1 ultra wide, 1 wide angle, and 1 telephoto. So our first choice will be to check whether we have a triple camera. If we fail to do so, that means our device does not have 3 cameras. We will go on to the wide, dual wide camera. Here Apple tells us that our camera is having 1 wide angle and 1 ultra wide angle. So if this also fails, that means we need to move on to the dual camera setup. So for the dual camera, Apple tells us that we have 1 of the wide angle and 1 of the telephoto cameras. And if none of the above was successful, we will try to use the built-in wide angle camera for the single camera devices. Alright, enough of the theory part. Let's head to the code now. Let's see what we can do and how we can write the code. Back in Xcode, let's open up the capture session controller. Here I'm going to write a private extension on capture session controller. Let's make up more space. And I'm going to write a method get video capture device that returns AVCaptureDevice. If we could not find anything I'm going to say return nil. That is at the end. But first, as we said, we need to try and grab the triple camera. So let's say if let triple camera, we're going to ask AVCaptureDevice that we need default device for our triple camera, and type media is video, and position is the back camera. We are interested in the back camera. If I was able to get the triple camera, I'm going to return that. Next, we will check. We need to get the dual wide camera. Default of the dual wide angle camera of type media. Position, I'm interested in back, and dual wide camera. Similarly, next we move on to the dual camera. We are going to ask AVCaptureDevice to give us the default camera of type dual camera, and type media type is video, and position is back. I'm going to return the dual camera. Finally, we can say give us the wide angle camera. Going to ask AVCaptureDevice default of wide angle of type video, and position is back. Return the wide angle. Need to have the let variable over here, let statement, and return the wide angle camera. Let's update our code to use the get video capture device. By scrolling up in the init method, we were earlier just simply getting the dual wide angle camera. Now I'm going to select this piece of code, hit backspace to delete it, and going to write get video capture device. Next, let's build and run our application to see whether this works. I'm going to open up QuickTime over here so you can see my screen recording. That's fine. And going to stop the application. Also confirm by putting a breakpoint over here. What kind of camera setup do we get? So when we run our application and going to step one by one, we can see that it went inside and it got the triple camera. That's my phone. That is the iPhone 11 Pro Max that I'm testing it on right now. And continuing it, we can see we get the proper camera setup. Next, we need to create a method that returns us the capture device input. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to write a function under the same private extension that we previously created, and I'm going to say give me the capture device input, and going to configure pass the parameter of capture device, AV capture device, its type, and here I'm going to return AV capture device input. Always I'm going to say it's optional because we can get an exception thrown from the iOS, so we'll see about that. Here I'm going to write a do and catch block where I'm going to grab the error, and also going to specify capture device input. Try getting the AV capture device input by specifying the device capture device that we got from the previous code, and return that if we were able to get it successfully. Otherwise, if an error was thrown, we need to print our error over here. We'll say failed to get capture device input with error and pass in the error that we got. And if none of the above two was successful, we can say return nil. This is just to avoid the complaint from the builder. Next, we will update the code by scrolling up, and here we had the try method first. So we're going to select this code, delete it, and going to write get capture device input, and here I need to pass the capture input. Let's run our application to confirm whether this works. Going to open up QuickTime over here, and I notice that this runs fine. Going to hit stop. Next, we are going to work on this piece of code over here. If you notice, we will be requiring multiple steps over here to get the capture devices and require the capture device input. So everything returned from this specific functions will be optional. So we have one choice of having multiple nested if statements that will lead us to the pyramid of doom, that how the iOS community online is saying about the multiple nested if statements. So rather than that, we're going to have clean code. So let's see what we can do about that. By that, I mean we need to have a new method over here in the private extension, and it shall be called initialize capture session. And inside this piece of code, I'm going to first try to get the capture device. Let's hide the bottom console area, make up more space, and guard that capture device, get video capture device else return. So we should return in case anything fails. And next, try to get the capture input. Get capture device input, and we need to specify our capture device that we got, else return. Then we also need to ask capture session whether you can add the input that we are providing you. So capture device input, else return if you cannot add it. And if everything is fine, we can ask capture session to add the input that we got previously from the capture device input, and also ask the capture session to start running. So let's call this method by heading up and selecting this whole lines of code, hitting backspace to erase it, and call in the initialize capture session, and going to clean up some space. So what we are doing over here is we are exiting from the method early and gracefully. So we don't need to have multiple if statements. This is how the guard statement helps us by maintaining clean code. So where we have its own separate method, and we can exit gracefully. So let's run our application to confirm whether this runs fine or not. I'm running the application now, and in the QuickTime player, we can see our code runs fine. That is perfect. That's what we want. With that, we conclude today's video. If you like the video, hit like. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. If you want me to cover any extra material in future, please mention in the comments. I'll be doing that. Alright guys, thank you so much. Bye-bye.